You are about to hear a word that is going to show up everywhere over the next few months. Stagflation. It sounds like some boring economics term that only matters to people in suits. But this word describes one of the worst financial disasters that can hit an economy. The kind that destroys savings, kills jobs, and turns stable countries into complete chaos. And there are real signs that it might be happening right now. Here is what makes stagflation so terrifying. Usually when the economy goes bad, governments have tools to fix it. They can print money to create jobs. They can raise interest rates to stop prices from going up. But stagflation is different. It is when three horrible things happen at the same time. The economy stops growing, unemployment shoots up, and prices keep rising anyway. It is like getting punched in the face from three different directions at once. And the worst part? The cure for one problem makes the other two problems even worse. Let me paint you a picture of what this actually looks like. Imagine you lose your job because the economy is tanking and companies are laying people off. You need to find work fast. But while you are searching, the price of everything keeps going up. Rent, food, gas, medicine, everything. So not only are you unemployed, but your savings are getting destroyed by inflation. And when you finally do find a job, it pays less than your old one because unemployment is so high that employers can lowball everyone. Meanwhile, if the government tries to fix the unemployment problem by printing money and lowering interest rates, that just makes inflation even worse. And if they try to fix inflation by raising interest rates and pulling money out of the economy, that makes unemployment even worse. You are trapped in a nightmare where every move makes something worse. Before we go deeper into this economic disaster, if you want to understand the hidden forces that control your financial life and stop getting blindsided by economic chaos you cannot see coming, hit that subscribe button right now. This is Disciplined Ego, and we are building a community that refuses to accept simple explanations for complex problems. We break down the real mechanisms behind economic disasters so you can protect yourself before it is too late. Subscribe, because we are just getting started. Now let me explain why stagflation is even possible. Because on paper, it should not happen. Most economists believed for decades that you could not have high inflation and high unemployment at the same time. They thought these two things worked like opposite sides of a seesaw. If unemployment goes down, inflation goes up. If inflation goes down, unemployment goes up. There is even a fancy graph called the Phillips Curve that shows this relationship. For a long time, this made sense. When lots of people have jobs, they have money to spend. When everyone is spending money, businesses can charge higher prices. That is inflation. But when unemployment is high, people do not have money to spend. So businesses have to lower prices to get anyone to buy anything. That is deflation, or at least stable prices. Then the 1970s happened, and everything economists thought they knew got thrown out the window. The US economy got hit with massive inflation. Prices doubled in less than a decade. But at the same time, unemployment shot up to nearly 10%. Economic growth stopped completely. For years. This was not supposed to be possible. It broke all the rules. And it destroyed millions of lives in the process. People who had stable jobs suddenly found themselves unemployed. People who had savings watched them get cut in half by inflation. Retirees on fixed incomes could not afford to eat. It was a complete disaster. So what caused it? How did the impossible become reality? The answer is complicated, but it boils down to a few major factors happening at once. First, there was an oil crisis. Countries in the Middle East cut off oil supplies to the US. Oil prices quadrupled almost overnight. And because everything in a modern economy runs on oil, the cost of everything exploded. Transportation got more expensive. Manufacturing got more expensive. Heating homes got more expensive. This created what economists call supply shock inflation. Prices went up not because people had more money to spend, but because the cost of actually making and moving stuff skyrocketed. Second, governments had been printing money and running deficits for years to pay for wars and social programs. All that extra money floating around the economy was already creating inflation pressure. When the oil crisis hit, it was like throwing gasoline on a fire. Third, workers had strong unions back then. When inflation started rising, workers demanded higher wages to keep up. Companies agreed because they did not want strikes. But when companies paid higher wages, they raised prices to maintain profits. This created a wage price spiral where wages and prices kept chasing each other higher and higher. And finally, governments did not know how to respond. They tried lowering interest rates to boost employment. That made inflation worse. They tried raising interest rates to stop inflation. That made unemployment worse. They kept flip-flopping between strategies, which just created uncertainty and made everything worse. The result was nearly a decade of economic hell. From 1973 to 1982, the U.S. economy barely grew at all. Unemployment peaked at nearly 11%. Inflation peaked at almost 15% per year. That means if you had $10,000 in the bank, it lost $1,500 of value in a single year just from inflation. People who had been saving their whole lives for retirement watched their nest eggs evaporate. Young people could not find jobs. The few jobs that existed paid wages that could not keep up with rising prices. Businesses went bankrupt because nobody could afford to buy their products. It was a complete disaster. And here is the really scary part. It took brutal measures to fix it. The Federal Reserve chairman at the time, Paul Volcker, decided the only way to kill inflation was to cause a recession on purpose. He raised interest rates to 20%. 20%. That meant if you wanted to borrow money to buy a house or start a business, you would pay 20% interest. Nobody could afford that. The economy crashed. Unemployment went even higher. But eventually, after years of pain, inflation finally came down. The economy started growing again. But it took nearly a decade of suffering to get there. Now you might be thinking, okay, that was the 1970s. That was 50 years ago. Why should I care now? Because the same warning signs are showing up today. And if economists are right, we might be heading into another stagflation crisis. Let me show you why people are worried. First, inflation is back. After the pandemic, governments around the world printed trillions of dollars. They sent stimulus checks. They kept interest rates at basically zero. All that money flooded into the economy. At first, it seemed fine, but then supply chains got messed up. Factories shut down. Shipping got backed up. There were not enough workers. And suddenly, there was way more money chasing way fewer goods. That is the recipe for inflation. Prices started rising fast. Not as bad as the 1970s yet, but bad enough. Food prices jumped. Gas prices doubled. Rent went up. And even though central banks raised interest rates to try to slow it down, inflation is still stubbornly high. Second, economic growth is slowing. After the initial bounce back from the pandemic, growth has stalled. Some quarters show barely any growth at all. Some show negative growth, which is a recession. Companies are cutting back on spending. Investment is drying up. Consumer confidence is falling. People are worried about the future, so they are spending less, which makes the economy slow down even more. Third, unemployment is starting to tick up. Not a lot yet, but the trend is worrying. Job growth has slowed dramatically. Companies are announcing layoffs. The jobs that do exist often pay less or are part-time gig work instead of stable careers. And here is the kicker. The official unemployment number does not tell the whole story. It only counts people actively looking for work. It does not count people who gave up looking. It does not count people working part-time who want full-time jobs. It does not count people who took jobs way below their skill level because they could not find anything better. If you count all those people, real unemployment is much higher than the official number suggests. So we have rising prices, slowing growth, and rising unemployment. Those are the three ingredients of stagflation. And governments are stuck in the same trap as the 1970s. If they lower interest rates to help the economy and create jobs, inflation gets worse. If they raise interest rates to fight inflation, unemployment gets worse and the economy slows down even more. They are trapped, and so are we. But there is more to the story. Some of the specific problems today are even worse than the 1970s. Back then, the US was still a creditor nation. It had money saved up. Today, the US government has over $30 trillion in debt. $30 trillion. That is more than the entire economy produces in a year. And rising interest rates make that debt way more expensive to pay back. Every time the Federal Reserve raises rates, the government has to pay more interest on that debt, which means they have to either cut spending on things people need, raise taxes, or print even more money. All of those options make the situation worse. There is also the problem of the dollar. For decades, the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency. That means other countries hold dollars and use dollars for international trade. This gives the US a huge advantage because it can print money and export some of that inflation to other countries. But other countries are getting tired of this. China, Russia, and others are trying to move away from the dollar. If that happens, all that inflation the US has been exporting will come rushing back home. Prices will spike even higher. The dollar will lose value, and the US will lose one of its biggest economic advantages. And then there is the whole issue with how governments measure inflation in the first place. The official numbers say inflation is maybe 3 or 4%. But anyone buying groceries or paying rent knows that is complete nonsense. The cost of living is going up way faster than the official numbers suggest. Housing costs are routinely underestimated. Shrinkflation, where products get smaller but cost the same, is not fully captured. Quality getting worse is not captured at all. So even if the government says they have inflation under control, real people are still getting crushed by rising prices. Here is what this means for normal people. If stagflation hits for real, your savings get destroyed by inflation while your income stagnates or disappears completely. That emergency fund you built up, it buys less and less every year. That raise you gotta work. It does not keep up with rising prices, so you are actually taking a pay cut in real terms. And if you lose your job, good luck finding a new one that pays what you need to survive. This is why stagflation is considered one of the worst economic scenarios possible. It attacks you from multiple directions at once. So what do? How do you protect yourself? First, understand that cash loses value during stagflation. Do not just sit on cash in a savings account, earning nothing while inflation eats it alive. You need assets that hold value or go up when inflation rises. Historically, things like real estate, commodities, and certain stocks do okay during stagflation. Not great, but better than cash. Second, if you have debt, the type of debt matters. Fixed-rate debt, like a mortgage, actually gets easier to pay back during inflation because your wages might go up but your payment stays the same. Variable-rate debt, like credit cards, gets worse because interest rates will rise. So pay off variable-rate debt as fast as possible. Third, focus on skills and income. In a stagflation environment, having multiple income streams or skills that are in demand is crucial. If you lose your job, you need to be able to pivot fast. And if you keep your job, you need leverage to demand raises that actually keep up with inflation. Fourth, do not trust the official numbers. The government has every incentive to make things look better than they are. Inflation is probably higher than they say. Unemployment is probably higher than they say. Growth is probably lower than they say. Use your own eyes. Track your own spending. Notice when prices go up or quality goes down. Make decisions based on what you actually see, not what politicians tell you. The hardest part about stagflation is that there is no easy fix. In a normal recession, governments can print money and lower rates to boost the economy. In a normal inflation crisis, they can raise rates and pull money out. But in stagflation, both tools make something worse. The only real solution is painful and slow. You have to let the economy go through a recession to reset prices and clear out inefficiencies. That means unemployment goes up. Businesses fail. People suffer. But eventually, prices come back down and growth can start again. The problem is that no politician wants to be the one who caused that pain. So instead, they try to avoid it, which just makes the eventual crash worse. This is what happened in the 1970s. Politicians kept trying to avoid the pain. They kept printing money and hoping things would get better. And it just made the problem drag on for years. It was not until someone had the guts to cause a recession on purpose that the crisis finally ended. And there is a good chance we are seeing the same thing play out again right now. Governments are trying to avoid a recession because recessions are politically unpopular. But by avoiding it, they might be creating the conditions for stagflation instead, which is way worse than a normal recession. The question is not whether we can avoid economic pain. The question is whether we take the pain now in a controlled way or whether we let it build up until it explodes in our faces. Right now, it looks like we are choosing the explosion. So what should you be watching for? The big warning signs are simple. If unemployment keeps rising while prices keep going up, that is stagflation. If economic growth stays flat or negative while inflation stays high, that is stagflation. If wages are not keeping up with the cost of living, that is stagflation. And if the government keeps flip-flopping on interest rates because they cannot decide whether to fight inflation or unemployment, that is a sign they are stuck in the stagflation trap. Right now, we are not in full-blown 1970s-style stagflation yet, but we are closer than we have been in 50 years. And the longer governments wait to take real action, the worse it is going to get. Stagflation does not happen overnight. It builds slowly, and by the time everyone realizes it is happening, it is already too late to avoid the pain. The best you can do is understand what is coming and position yourself to survive it. That means protecting your savings from inflation, diversifying your income, paying off bad debt, and most importantly, not trusting that the government or the Federal Reserve has this under control. Because history shows they probably do not. The 1970s proved that even smart economists can be completely wrong about how the economy works. The theories they believed in failed spectacularly, and it took a decade of suffering to figure out what actually works. We might be in the early stages of learning that lesson all over again. Except this time, the stakes are even higher. The debt is bigger. The economy is more fragile. And the political will to do what is necessary is probably even weaker. So buckle up. The word stagflation is about to become very familiar. And understanding what it means might be the difference between surviving the next economic crisis and getting completely destroyed by it. Thanks for sticking with us through this. If you found this valuable, make sure you check out the next video that is about to pop up on your screen. We are going even deeper into the economic disasters that nobody is talking about, but everyone needs to understand. This is Money Trap, and we will see you in the next one.